Schizophrenia. I am born schizophrenic. I am born schizophrenic. What does that mean? It means that, in brief detail, that when I was created as a fetus, as a embryo, there was a sort of complication, or there was a more like a decision made, literally, that I was to be schizophrenic. And so there was done, you might call it interruptions, in the creation of me as an embryo, and there was disturbances on my mind, on my beingness, and on my reincarnation process, and all of this was sort of confused and mixed up and sort of molded and blended into the design of schizophrenia. So I'm born schizophrenic, but it wasn't discovered before I was 25 years old. So that's kind of interesting, and also, schizophrenia is when you have two to three personalities that are at once fighting one another in one's mind. There are 2 to 3 personalities that are at once having a war in one's head. They are fighting each other, having literally a war in one's head. And from this war in the mind, in the head, there is voice in the head, there is often addictions of various kinds, there is disturbances, there is pain, there is conspiracy beliefs, there's all sorts of crazy thought patterns and hallucinations and confusions of one's mind and one's living. So, but those are all the symptoms, Those are the symptoms, the voices, the addictions, the conspiracy mind, the hallucinations, all of that is the symptoms. The back-laying issue, the issue behind these symptoms, is that there is an actual war going on between personalities of one's mind. Also, you can add to that how I experience that I actually have different mind units, boxes, that are in my experience of being. I can have 3 or 4 different mind boxes, separate own units of mind operating at once, so that to follow one's speech, to follow a conversation, for instance, if one is suffering deep schizophrenia, is very confusing. It's very hard. A simple thing, seemingly a simple thing, as to follow a conversation and to answer to one's questions and so on, becomes very difficult when you find yourself bouncing between 3 or 4 mind boxes, total, separate, complete mind boxes. So that's another perspective. And another thing I would like to add is that very many people today say that we don't need schizophrenic diagnosis. It is outdated, doesn't work anymore, doesn't exist. Now, I would like to say to those arguments that I'm a schizophrenic and I would like to have my diagnosis, because having my diagnosis actually helps me to understand myself. And, with this war of personalities in one's mind, with these different mind boxes, units, it becomes a very complicated illness, would you not say? It is by those terms a very complicated illness. And, you know, so I think that's why people often discharge and say that it doesn't exist, move on, find something else to do. And those are seldom the patients themselves. The schizophrenic themselves seldom say that they don't want diagnosis. These are people standing around the schizophrenic, the activists, the politicians, the doctors, the healthcare, the family, and so on. People who assume things about the schizophrenic. And trying to make decisions on their behalf. Are saying that we shouldn't have the diagnosis because it doesn't exist any longer. We decided it doesn't exist any longer. Well, you know, this is me explaining the detail and specificity of schizophrenia, actually, and how complicated and advanced illness of mind, mental illness, that really is. So, yeah, that is some of the basics of schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is an actual war in the head between personalities, and these different personalities need their own base ground to stand on, and so I think that is why we have several different mind units, total, separate, and complete, you might add. Mind boxes, units that operate as of self, as of the schizophrenic. And that is by far a complicated illness. And I think that many people might experience that they have a war in the head. I can imagine that a lot of people experience that without them being schizophrenic. And that is, you know, okay, so maybe there's like a borderline schizophrenic, yeah, perhaps. Maybe there's like schizoaffective, like a light, yeah, perhaps. Or maybe you experience that you have more than one mind unit, actually. We have components that remind you of the mind systems of these components that you carry. And that might be correct. The point is, I guess, that we are all very much locked in a mental illness, and I think it is about high time that we acknowledge that individually. So, this is me today exposing schizophrenia, and because I would like to know and understand my schizophrenia, and I would like to share with you open source what I find and how I experience it. So if you have questions, feel free to ask me questions. I would love to answer questions. And if you have anything that you're not certain that I should touch in on, please feel free to ask me questions. And yeah, thank you very much and enjoy.